It is 1976. The American merchant vessel Petrox Explorer has just set sail from the port of Surabaya in search of oil. What they find will shock the world.
We may be sailing into the history books.
She's alive!
You know, maybe my luck has changed.
They will discover an uncharted island that is the home of the most incredible creature on the face of the earth. A creature called Kong. Dino De Laurentiis presents the most exciting, original motion picture event of all time. King Kong. King Kong, a fantastic adventure. Open the gate! King Kong. King Kong, unlike anything you've ever experienced before. With Jeff Bridges, Charles Grodin, and introducing Jessica Lange as the beauty who charmed the beast. And starring the eighth wonder of the world, King Kong.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1976 science fiction horror adventure movie, King Kong, starring Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange, Charles Grodin. It's an all-star cast. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. Go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. Don't forget to give us the big thumbs up. Also go to our page on YouTube at KD9575 and subscribe there as well. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at The B Movie Club. You do that, you get all the latest updates. Anytime I post a new video, any kind of B-movie-ish links you might find, we pass it right on to you. And don't forget to spread the word. The more the merrier. Okay? King Kong. In this movie, a petrochemical company is off in the Atlantic looking for a lost island that may actually be kind of a secret, unknown area where there's a lot of petroleum. There's a lot of oil to be found, an untapped resource, if you will. So they're shooting off to get there before the other competing oil companies kind of find out about it. But they have a stowaway. This young anthropologist from Princeton named Jack Prescott, he's stowed away on board because he's heard about this island that they may be going to. It's called the Island of the Skull, essentially, from these old writings, because they think there might be some evidence of some ancient primate or some kind of hominid of unknown origin, that sort of thing. So rather than throw him overboard, they agree, okay, even though you're kind of a long-haired hippie liberal, we'll hire you to be the photographer on this thing as kind of a, what else are we going to do with you? Along the way, they also find a boat, like a lifeboat floating in the middle of the ocean. They pick it up, and there's a young aspiring actress named Dwan, D-W-A-N, because I guess she thought that would be more interesting than Dawn. Okay, she's trying to set a name for herself as an actress. So they pick her up, throw her on board, and make their way to the island. Now, the island is unknown because it's covered in fog. So if you're passing by in a ship or in a plane, you'll just see this fog bank. And they think that's caused by the geothermal activity. That's just a permanent cloud over it, essentially. But due to the latest technologies of 1976, they're using like infrared, like satellites passing overhead are able to just determine that there is in fact a landmass there. So they get there and they think, oh, it's obviously an abandoned island. But right after they set on land, they see there's a huge wall setting up. So they're like, well, that's kind of weird for an abandoned island. Oh, that's okay. That's an old ruin. And then, of course, immediately hear drums, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so obviously it's not abandoned. Somehow they're able to get through the wall, and they see like an ancient tribe of some sort doing some kind of a ceremony. And, of course, the tribesmen notice the people, and they try to go up, and they see the beautiful blonde-haired actress, Dwan, and they're like, hey, give her to us. How about you let us have her? And they're like, no thanks, pal. Well, what if we trade you 7 of our native girls for one of your for one of your blondies? They think about no thanks. But now it's like war, okay? So they have to basically hold off. They fire their guns in the air, and the tribesmen run off. And they say, okay, well, let's get back to the boat. We'll come back later to do our tests to find out if there is, in fact, oil. Because they see like these bubbling like craters in the ground, this black liquid, blah, 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 blah. So they get back to the boat, but late that night, Dwan is kidnapped by the tribesmen who row aboard. And it's a good thing she's just hanging out on the dock. She's like just chilling down at the bottom of the stairs that lead right into the ocean, instead of actually, being inside the boat. It's a big oil tanker. She could have been anywhere, but she's hanging out right where the tribesmen can most easily capture her, evidently. So they grab her. They've got her chained up outside as kind of a sacrifice. But a sacrifice to what? We don't know. The oil company guys and Jack decide to go and to try to rescue her, while they also set up kind of a beachhead on the beach to start doing their tests. Dwan is taken by a giant ape, King Kong, who doesn't show up till like 58 minutes into the movie, picks her up, and wanders back into the jungle. A small group of oil workers and Jack decide to go after her. They don't know. They see some footprints in the dirt. So like a huge, like Fred Wilson, who's in charge of the expedition, who works for the oil company, falls into a hole and goes, oh, this is strange. So they go and they're looking for her, following her tracks. Now, through the night, Dwan is actually treated very nicely by the ape, who kind of growls and shouts and things like that, but really is nice to her, like dunks her in a waterfall so she can have a little bath, and then blows on her as kind of like a hairdryer kind of deal, I guess. Being very sweet to her, evidently. So the guys are coming along, trying to follow the tracks. They finally see King Kong is up there, and they take a shot at him, and that makes Kong angry, as you might imagine. So while they're crossing this log to try to get from one side to the other, so all like 5 of these oil workers, Kong just walks up, takes the log and starts shaking it like this, and they all, one by one, they fall over the side, except for Jack, who's hanging onto the side, and one of the oil workers, he's hanging onto the other side. It's very upsetting. So all those other guys bite the dust. Very sad. Eventually, Dwan escapes. Jack rescues her. They run back. But now, the oil workers have discovered that the oil that they thought was all over this island is not really oil. Or it's oil, but it'll take 10,000 years to be something actually they could use. So it's a totally wasted trip. Now, Fred Wilson, who's running the expedition, is like, oh my goodness, I convinced company to do this, my career's in shambles. Well, what I can do instead is kidnap this ape and then use it as kind of a publicity thing to, hey, we lost the oil, but here's this big publicity thing that's going to, make a lot of money for our company. So they use chloroform, and they set up a trap, and they kidnap King Kong, and they throw him in to the oil tank, which is empty because there's no oil, obviously. He's kind of bashing around, but eventually, he sees Dwan and is like, oh, okay, I'll calm down. Smash cut to New York City. There's a big show going on here. They've got Mighty Kong chained up, and they're there's like marching bands and fireworks, and there's all these people. It's like the petrochemical company presents King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world kind of thing. And Fred Wilson's like, oh, here's this ape, blah, blah, blah. And they bring out Dwan, who's agreed to participate. Jack is like, this is a travesty. I can't be involved in this. So he goes off. Dwan is there, and Kong sees her getting kind of bumped by the press, who's getting a little too close, a little too paparazzi-ish. And he breaks through the chains. While Fred Wilson's like, oh, it's okay. It's a giant ape-proof cage. And, of course, he's just, in 2 seconds, he's out of there. He's running through the streets. I don't want to spoil everything. I basically told you the whole plot, but I don't want to spoil everything else, okay? So King Kong. Now, as you know, the original King Kong was made back in the 30s, starring Fay Wray as the beautiful, ingenue who's Kong falls in love with, and blah, 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 blah. And eventually King Kong goes to appear in other kind of movies against Godzilla and things like that. In the 70s, they're like, okay, well, we want to bring back the American version of King Kong, but we're not going to do the same story. We come up with a totally different story. And initially, there was going to be a thought of just kind of recreating it. Universal was going to make basically remake like a more accurate remake of the original plot. But when they heard about this new version, they kind of junked that plan. The director, who went on to do such wonderful things as The Towering Inferno previously to this, so that's something. He was brought in. They tried to hire these famous people to work on the special effects. They hired Carlo Rambaldi from Italy to do kind of the mechanical effects. They brought in famous special effects guy Rick Baker to help with that. And they actually worked simultaneously. Rambaldi built literally a 40-foot tall King Kong character, and Rick Baker built like basically a man-sized costume that someone could wear and kind of run around that way. The giant 40-foot thing literally cost $1.5 million to make, but it didn't work very well, and it didn't look very good, kind of like a marionette or something, so it literally appears in 15 seconds of the movie. And if you're paying attention, it's jarring when you see him. It's like suddenly looks totally different than he's ever looked at any other time. So 90% of the movie was Rick Baker wearing this suit running around. Rick Baker was not pleased with the final product. He felt it didn't look very good at all, and he praised the cinematographer for making it look passable, like by basically using lighting and filming from certain angles. They used a mechanical head and a mechanical arm for those scenes where it would pick up Dwan and kind of carry her around and things like that. But even that was kind of crazy. At one point, the hand kind of hurt her, like she got a pinched nerve in her neck from the crazy grabbing hand. Good times had by all. Casting. Charles Grodin was cast as Fred Wilson in one of his most triumphant roles, as I'm sure you know. His last day of filming was actually, spoiler alert, the day he gets squished by King Kong, so that's very sad, obviously. Jeff Bridges they brought in to be Jack Prescott with his long hair and bushy beard. Did very well, I would say. Dwan, a lot of people auditioned for it. They brought in Meryl Streep, and Dino De Laurentiis, who was producing the movie, basically didn't cast her. And he was talking to somebody right in front of Meryl Streep in Italian, just saying, oh, she's ugly. She's not pretty enough for this role. Little did he know that Meryl Streep speaks Italian. So that went real well. Instead, they went with a totally unknown actress, her first performance, Jessica Lange. So Jessica Lange, this was her first movie ever. She went on, obviously, to do big things. She was in Tootsie and Cape Fear and all sorts of good stuff. So she was cast in this. And originally the plot was going to focus around like Dwan was a female camera person and Jack was kind of like a member of the crew who's kind of a malingerer and kind of malcontent sort of deal. But they junked all. They thought that was too much like an ABC Sunday night movie kind of feel, so they junked that with this different plan. There's a climactic scene at the end of the movie, as you might imagine, where Kong has got Dwan up on the roof, and they're shooting at King Kong. And traditionally, this scene was filmed on the Empire State Building. To kind of give it an updated feel, they decided to put him on the World Trade Center, which led actual workers from the Empire State Building to picket and protest this movie. They thought, how dare you? How could you? So he's up there getting shot by instead of like the biplanes circling around shooting him, they have like these helicopters where they were shooting him. And it's very bizarre because over the course of the movie, Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange's character, instead of being horrified and afraid of Kong, have begun to like love and appreciate him, even though he's like wrecking the city and killing people, stomping on people. So when the Air National Guard or the police department is shooting Kong, they're actually rooting against the people. There's one scene where the soldiers come out with like a flamethrower to use on Kong, and Kong kills them. Jeff Bridges is like celebrating, yeah, get him. Like, come on. I appreciate you being conflicted, but to be like, yeah, kill those humans, get them, just seemed ridiculous. So there's that bizarreness going on there. I guess Jeff Bridges, he's an anthropologist, and he's an animal lover. I appreciate that. He expected them to drop, I guess, like a net on him or something. I don't know. Drop a net on a 40-foot gorilla. What kind of net? Who's making the net? Do they just have these nets lying around? I don't know what his plan was, but evidently not that. So that's good. This movie went on to become a relatively large hit. 10 years later, they made a movie called King Kong Lives, where, spoiler alert, King Kong dies in the first movie, or so we're led to believe. He was actually alive. He was scooped up by the government, and they saved his life, but by giving him like a heart transplant, a big mechanical heart. And they found another giant ape in like the jungles of Borneo or whatever. It's all very bizarre. Linda Hamilton is in it. So if you want to see that one didn't do very well at the box office, as you might imagine. And then more recently, like 10 years ago, they did a total remake of King Kong, a remake of the original, starring Jack Black. It was Peter Jackson. It had Naomi Watts and Adrian Brody. And again, more of a more of a true callback to the original movie. So there you go. No oil companies or anything like that. So what are you going to do? This movie currently has a 52% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, which I can kind of understand. It's kind of ridiculous, as you might imagine. The special effects, questionable. I didn't think the gorilla, the King Kong in the suit, was that ridiculous. I mean, he walked on his 2 feet and kind of just walked around like a person would, because it's a guy in a suit, which, what are you going to do? Other than that, I thought it was fine. Did the job. But it is kind of hard to classify this movie. I mean, it has a giant ape, okay, that's hurting New York. So, I mean, is that a horror movie? Is it a science fiction movie? A drama? An adventure? I don't know what it is. So whatever it is, it's fun. It gets the job done. It's really, what are you going to do? It's fine. Okay? If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's still streaming instantly on Netflix. Send in any favorite scene, favorite quotes, comments, or questions, and I may talk about it on an upcoming show. Good times had by all. Moving away from whatever genre this is, we're going back to the comedy realm. We're going to be doing the Michael Keaton classic, Joe Piscopo, Mary Lou Henner. It's an all-star cast. Johnny Dangerously. You know it, don't you? Also streaming instantly on Netflix. Send any movie suggestions. I would love to hear, what movies would you like me to review? Please, the more the merrier, I always say. So don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Go to our page on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter @the B Movie Club. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Let's not get eaten alive on this island. Bring the mosquito spray. So there you have it. That's Good Times with King Kong. Next week, Johnny Dangerously. Thank you for joining us, and be well.